Hello, good morning. I am live in the Goddess Ascension group, coming at you this morning with my free masterclass, which is all about decoding the quantum fields. So I'm just going to give it a little minute to see who is joining me this morning. When you come on, if you can do me a huge favor and say hello, that would be great. And hi, Lindsay, good morning. And if you just want to type in the comments how you're feeling this morning and what you are hoping to receive from this transmission. Hi, Nikki. Lovely to have you. Hi, Lindsay. Yeah, it's really nice when people come on if they just say a little hello and just how you're feeling. And if you have, hi Emma, if you have any idea what you think is coming in these transmissions, or if you're just here for the ride, just let me know. And I'm going to take you on a little journey. Just let me know if the sound's okay for you as well, if you can hear me nice and clearly. And we'll just wait a minute or two before I start to get into it. I know my friend V in Australia got mixed up with the time, so she was early. And now it's bedtime over there. I really encourage you, if you have a notebook in your house and you haven't got it with you, to grab the notebook, because there's going to be quite a lot of things to probably note down. Lindsay, I already feel excited. I feel more magic is about to be unlocked. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for letting me know about the sound. All right. So I am just going to invite us to take a couple of breaths together, just closing our eyes. And just breathing into the belly, taking a nice deep breath into your belly. If it helps to put your hands on your belly, you can do that as well. Breathing in. And just sighing the breath out. Let's do that one more time. Just breathing into your belly. And sighing the breath out. And just allowing yourself to arrive here this morning to this class. And just allowing yourself to release anything which it doesn't serve you to hold as you receive these transmissions. Just releasing anything that's taking up unnecessary space in your mind or your body by connecting with your breath. Just letting that go. Namaste, good morning. Welcome. So this class that I'm going to offer this morning is inspired by the fabulous, legendary, if you haven't heard of her yet, Melanie Ann Layer, who is the creative genius behind the coaching company Alpha Femme. And one of the programs that Melanie runs is called Exponential Wealth. And that is a program which I completed last month. And that program is about exponential wealth in every sense of being wealthy. So in the financial sense, but also in every other sense, being energetically wealthy, being wealthy in terms of like how much appreciation for all the abundance we already have we can bring into our energetic field whilst also desiring more, right? So a lot of energetic work around the frequency of abundance. And in that program, in that Exponential Wealth program, which is a program that she runs every year, there was a nugget that she dropped in the second module, which slightly blew my mind. And I actually caught it late. I didn't catch it live. I caught it a few weeks after. But everybody within the group was like, oh my God, module 2, module 2, module 2. And I already started thinking, I really, really want to speak on these things. Like, this is just magic, and I want to bring it to other people. So I reached out to her team and said to them, look, I really want to speak about this component in from Exponential Wealth Module 2. Would it be okay if I picked out this particular piece and obviously turn it into my own sharing? But essentially, it's obviously going to be based on this component from Melanie's program. And they were like, absolutely fine to do that, just if you can just credit Melanie. So I've been crediting her everywhere. And I'm just doing it one more time on this live, just to be absolutely clear that these nuggets came from her, but the way I'm going to describe it and flesh it out and illustrate it is from me. And I don't normally use, let's say, downloads that have come through someone else in my own masterclasses and lives. I usually just speak on things that have come directly through me. But for some reason, there was just something about this module that I was like, I have to share this. I have to. When we receive new information in this process of transformation, there is a 3-step process. The first step is information. In other words, somebody tells us something, it's a new piece of information, and we understand it at an intellectual level. The second step is transformation, meaning you hear the new code, the new idea, the new concept. Transformation is you have a moment where you feel it more deeply than just understanding it in your brain. That's the moment of transformation. It's like what Oprah calls aha moments. It's where something in your body pops and goes, oh my God, yes, I can feel that. I can feel the resonance of that. Sometimes when that happens, it's a little bit fleeting. So you might get that moment where it really lands and it really makes sense. And then the next step is to what extent we can integrate that information. So information, transformation, integration. The integration stage is where after the transformation has happened, in other words, you've had something shift energetically in your body when you've heard this information. Integration is the extent to which you can embody that in your life so that it becomes your modus operandus. It becomes intrinsic to how you are, how you behave, how you think, how you've recoded yourself. And sometimes it can take a long time for that process to go from information, transformation, integration. But for some reason, with this particular module with Melanie, I feel like I went from those 3 steps in quantum speed, which is why I am bringing it to you in a very relatively short period of time after receiving these teachings myself. So here we go. So this module, which has now become a legendary module from the Exponential Wealth program, is the module where Melanie outlines these 3 paradigms that we play in, that we inhabit, as far as the things that we manifest in our lives. And these 3, she calls them the 3 fields. These 3 fields are the field of predictability, the field of possibility, and the field of potentiality. Okay? Predictability, possibility, potentiality. Today, I'm going to outline the first 2 fields, and then tomorrow morning, I'm going to outline the third one, the potentiality field, and bring it all together for you. So we're going to start with the first one, the field of predictability, because this is the field as humans that we spend the vast majority of our time dwelling in. So if you think of the different areas of your life, relationships, finances, where you go on holiday, how you spend your money, where you go to the supermarket, where you choose to park, which route you take when you're taking your children to school. If you start to really look at your life, you will notice that the dominant field that you're playing in is the field of predictability, right? So it's predictable that you would go to work on the same days every week for the same number of hours. If you've got a 9-to-5 type job as opposed to being an entrepreneur, it's predictable that you would earn X amount of money a month and that you would get paid on X day of the month. It's predictable that you would have the same, hi Vesna, it's predictable that you would have similar conversations with your colleagues at work because you are talking about the things that you're doing and you're doing the same things every day in a very habitual way. If you think about when you go to the supermarket, how many times those poor people on the checkouts have to say, have you got a club card? Would you like a bag? It's repetitious. That's a very extreme example of a job where you would probably ask the same question 600 times a day at least, right? And you try and ask each person as though you've never said it before. It's predictable that we go to the same places on holiday. Think about how many times you might have visited the same caravan park, the same resort in Spain, the same retreat center in Costa Rica, in my case. We create patterns. Humans like patterns. We don't like risk. We don't like the unknown. So if you have had a really good holiday somewhere near Malaga, you've been on the Ryanair flight, you know how to get there, you know how to use the Ryanair website booking system, you know that the hotel you stayed in the last time was really nice, you know that the swimming pool was great for the kids, you know that there were good restaurants. You have built a kind of pathway between yourself and that experience that feels secure, it feels safe. You feel like if you go back to that place on holiday, there's a high chance you've increased the stakes. There's a high chance you're going to have a good experience because you know what you're doing. It's familiar. If you go on holiday somewhere completely different, that then is moving into the field of possibility because you don't know that country, you don't know that area, you don't know the transport system, you don't know the language. So you've got proportionally more fear and more anxiety, but proportionally more excitement as well because you're going to be discovering something unknown and undiscovered. But in the vast majority of areas of our lives, we prefer the smaller pond of predictable. We prefer to take the same routes to the same places because we know how to turn left, how to turn right, we know we're going to get there. Every now and again, I play a little game with myself and try to take a different route, and usually somewhere along the line it goes wrong. Yeah? When we take a little gamble like that and we try and move away from these very familiar pathways and it goes wrong, or we don't then end up where we wanted to end up, we lose confidence to play in the field of possibility. We lose confidence to play with, I wonder if there's a different route. I wonder if there's a different place we could go on holiday. I wonder if it's possible that I could make more money doing a similar job in a different place. Oh, but I've been in this salon for years, or I've been in this college for years. The salary's a bit crap, but I know my colleagues. This one gets on my nerves, but at least I know her. The pay is really limited, but it's close to my house. I know what I'm doing. I know where to find everything. So over and over again, we tend to choose what's familiar, what's convenient, and what is well known. Because that is the path of least resistance, or that is seemingly the path of least resistance. If you think about the types of conversations you have with your friends when you meet them for lunch, if I start to reflect on that with myself, we tend to cover the same subjects each time. If you've got friends in common, one topic of conversation might be, have you spoken to this person recently? How's this person doing? How's that person doing? You exhaust that topic. How's work? You talk about that. How's things with your family? You talk about that. Nice to see you. See you next time. If you meet a friend for coffee, let's say. It's very habitual. How often do you have a conversation with a friend about something completely random? Maybe not that often, because as adults, we develop very formulaic ways of communicating and very formulaic ways of operating in the world. The reason we do that is because we don't like risk. That is the simple reason why we do it. We prefer a smaller pond because that way we know the territory, we know the terrain, we minimize risk. Anything that would involve taking us into a slightly larger pond is going to require navigating an unknown terrain and navigating different variables. And the human is coded to avoid that. So we choose safety over excitement. We choose familiarity over uncharted waters. We choose what we know over what we don't know, over and over again, to the point where that choice is unconscious. We're not even conscious that we're choosing the familiar, but we are. What happens when we operate predominantly in this field of predictability is that there is a trade-off, there is an energetic trade-off. What we gain from it is a relative feeling of safety in a world that often feels quite unsafe. Humans are always looking for ways to feel more safe. So that's what we gain from it. The price we pay for it is boredom and stagnation. Because this pond that we're living in, if it only becomes that we're just operating in the realm of the predictable all the time, becomes very sluggish. The waters become clogged up. There is no ecosystem which feels dynamic, because by definition, an ecosystem needs the elements to change, shift, and move, right? An ecosystem that involves water requires temperature change, requires the water to rise, requires the evaporation process, which then turns the water into clouds, which then shifts the energetic property of the water. Then it rains again. That has a cleansing influence on any ecosystem. So an ecosystem by definition needs to move in order to stay vibrant. So there's nothing inherently wrong per se with any of these different three fields that we play in. It can even be a positive thing to play in the field of predictability in some areas of life, right? If some areas of your life feel quite risky, then playing in the field of predictability in relationships, for example, if the work life feels risky, might be a healthy choice, because we don't want to traumatize our nervous systems either. Okay, so this is like an energetic balancing act between challenging, resourcing. If there's too much familiarity, if there's too much predictable behavior, the ecosystem stagnates. If there's too much challenge, too much trying to expand too quickly, quicker than we're energetically able to hold it, that can be quite traumatizing to the nervous system. So what we're looking for here is this sweet spot between challenging and resourcing. Challenging ourselves in some aspects, resourcing ourselves in others. So the field of predictability that I've just outlined is the one most likely that you will be most familiar with. Life creates patterns. Humans create patterns. Humans like patterns because with patterns they can predict what's going to happen next. If we can predict what's going to happen next, we feel safe. That is particularly relevant around money. Most women especially are very reluctant to take financial risks. We like to make sure that the same amount is coming in every month so that we know how to budget, we know what we can afford, and we stay in that pond. We also are very influenced by social conditioning around us. So if the social norms are synonymous with playing in this field of predictability, hi Lou, don't worry, then the people around you will reinforce to you over and over again that that's the best thing to do. That's the best arena to play in. And they will not necessarily consciously be doing that, but subconsciously, if they are playing in the field of predictability in their lives, they will consciously or subconsciously encourage you to do the same. So if we want to start to make these quantum leaps, it's essential that we begin to fraternize with people, women, who are in this same journey, this same energetic uplift frequency of being curious about what could happen when we start to play in a slightly bigger but less familiar arena. So the next arena that we play in, or that we can play in as far as how we operate, is the field of possibility. The field of possibility is a more expanded frequency than the field of predictability, because inherently it requires us to take risks, to do things differently, to try new ways, and to risk failure. In the field of predictability, there is a very low risk of failure because everything is so familiar and we've built up a body of evidence over time that these things work. If I go to this college every day at this time to this time on this day of the week, this amount of money arrives in my bank account. The more that happens, the more we build evidence that this is guaranteed, even though nothing's guaranteed, but energetically it feels guaranteed. So to move away from something that feels guaranteed towards something which feels not guaranteed but potentially more expansive requires us to take a quantum leap. So this next field is the field of possibility. As I described in the field of predictability, there is also an energetic trade-off. So in the field of predictability, we're trading excitement for safety. It's boring as shit, but it feels safe. In the field of possibility, we're going to meet our fears. We're going to have to draw on our courage because we're going into uncharted waters. And what we gain from that is expansion, growth, and we start to operate in the field of magic. The field of possibility is what we call the field of magic. This is the field which is a co-creation between you and the universe, whereby new possibilities start to become possible when you start to allow yourself to play in this more expanded frequency. Now, in order to understand a little bit more on the energetic side, why we don't play so much in this field and why we have so much fear around taking these kind of energetic risks, we have to take it back to childhood because everything comes back to there. That's the root of all of our coding. When you were very little, you were coded to play in the fields of possibility and potentiality, which goes even beyond the field of possibility. You were coded for that because you had not yet gathered enough evidence of enough times of disappointment and failure to have decided to energetically safeguard yourself around the risk of that happening again. So when you were very little, if you saw somebody riding a horse, you automatically thought, I can do that, I want to do that. If you saw someone on a bike and you were very little, even if like you were 3 years old, you would have had a feeling of excitement, a feeling of like, oh, there's somebody riding a bike. If they can do it, I can do it. I want to learn how to do that. If there was a place you wanted to go, a party you wanted to go to, you would feel that surge of excitement and you would follow it. The magical child follows their bliss. The magical child knows she's guided by like a golden thread that's kind of almost like from her heart extending out into the universe, following her desires, following her desires, following her desires. That was you. That was all of us. We played in that expanded frequency. It was only later when, as we began to surge with excitement about the possibility of things, and that was squashed over and over again. No, we can't do that today. No, that's not possible. No, we're not going to go there. No, you can't go to that party. No, we're not. That built up the evidence for the wounded child. That when I get excited about something and I begin to calibrate to something, it gets snatched away from me. I get like a hot air balloon. That energy, that upward momentum that I naturally feel as I lean into something I desire gets snatched down by adults around me telling me it's not possible. And then at some point, there is an energetic shift where the magical child starts to recede into the background and the wounded child starts to become the more dominant archetype. So when you were very, very little, and you wanted to do something, and you said, Mummy, can we go to the park today? Can we go to the park and feed the ducks? And she said, maybe. When you were very little and you heard maybe, and you were still connected with your magical child energy, you interpreted the maybe as a yes. Yay! Mummy said maybe. We're going. Woo! Get my hat, get my scarf. We're going. Right? You were excited. You felt it was a yes. Maybe is yes. But then as time went by and you desired to do things and your mother said maybe with a certain tone, you started to realize maybe means no. And then that became maybe means no. There was a huge energetic shift that took place between maybe equals yes and maybe equals no. So to give an example of something that I remember from when I was little, and if you think back to your childhood now, you will start to remember, or maybe a few hours after this live, when you go around and you're thinking about other things, it will come to you. There will have been something in your childhood that you desired to do so strongly that you could hardly contain yourself, right? Now, as a child, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, obsessed with Michael Jackson. The Bad Album was my first album that I ever bought. I knew all the songs, I knew all the dance moves, like I was obsessed. And I remember I think it was 1990, finding out that Michael Jackson was coming to Wembley Stadium in London, right? And my heart was like pounding. I was like, oh my God, Michael Jackson is coming to London. I have to go. I want to go. And I remember saying to my mum, can we go? Please. And she's looking at me like, there's no way on earth that I am going to a Michael Jackson concert at Wembley Stadium. She said, I can't think of anything worse. So imagine my energetic hot air balloon was swelling with the possibility of going to Wembley Stadium to see Michael Jackson, living, breathing, fucking magic on legs phenomenon on stage. And my mother's reaction is, I can't think of anything worse. It was the energetic equivalent of pinpricks, like 1,000 pinpricks going into that hot air balloon simultaneously, of just wah, 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 like, oh no. And I could feel the energy of my excitement just dwindling, because her no was like such a no. Like there was no, usually children can feel when there's a gap between the no and the yes, when the maybe has got a little bit more energy to it. Like maybe she is going to say yes in the end. But this was just a no. And as a child, when you have energetically connected with the possibility of something, you have transcended the frequency of the no. You are a vibrational match for the yes. I could already feel myself in that stadium. I could feel myself in that proximity to the most magical person on the planet. I knew that London was not far from our house. I knew that we could get there in a few hours in the car because we'd been to my grandparents many, many times who lived in London. I knew that we could stay with my grandparents. I knew it was possible, right? So I was energetically calibrated to the possibility of the yes. When you're a young child, you haven't yet built up the self-protection mechanisms to protect yourself from the outcome of that excitement not being met with a yes. So you're fully in it. You're fully in the excitement. You haven't yet learned to safeguard against excitement in case you get disappointed. But the more times we get disappointed, the more we learn to safeguard against future disappointments. So what happens is the pain of feeling like something magical is in touching distance, but suddenly someone else's paradigm, which is not in your frequency, and the person has utter control over what happens to you because it's your parent. If they say no, it's no. It becomes so painful to the child not to be met in that field of magic that they can already touch and feel. That what we learn to do is we learn to self-protect against the pain of that before it happens. And what's happened to all of us, women and men, is we have disconnected from the frequency of our desire. We've disconnected from the frequency of our desire because now what is encoded in the frequency of desire is the possible pain of disappointment, the possible pain of not being met, the possible pain of having to let go of something that felt like it was almost in touching distance, was excruciating. And we don't want to experience pain. Humans will always try to safeguard against pain. So desire when we were very little was a very pure frequency that we could tap into super easily. Desire to chase a squirrel in the park when you're very little. Desire to splash in puddles. It doesn't have to be big things, it's little things, but we followed that desire. And over again, when we were discouraged from following that desire, we stopped following. We energetically pulled in. We pulled our energy in and we were like, it's too dangerous emotionally and energetically for me to continue to desire and to continue to have that thread of desire cut off by external people or external situations. We disconnected. So we went from maybe is yes to maybe is encoded with no and is therefore encoded with disappointment, and therefore it's not safe to play in the field of possibility. The shift that we need to make now, the energetic shift that we are called to make now if we want to heal this rift between ourself and our desire, is to allow the possibility back into our energy field that maybe means yes. I'm going to say that again because that's something to write down. The new mantra is maybe means yes. If we can find the courage within ourselves when we hear a maybe around something we desire, instead of instantly coding it with this means no, a disappointment's coming, it's not going to happen, I'm already protecting myself. If we can just make that energetic shift to maybe means yes, absolutely everything changes. That is a game changer. We need to try to make the playing field in the field of possibility 50-50. 50-50 is an energetic neutral. It's like putting your car in neutral. From 50-50, we can climb to 51-49. As soon as the odds are weighted even 1%, 51% maybe is yes. If we can just tip those energetic scales a fraction, then we are in a frequency to play with the universe. We can manifest from there. But when the scales are tipped towards the disappointment, before the thing has even happened, we deflate instantly the possibility of the maybe means yes. So this is huge energetic work. The reason why it's huge energetic work is that the more times we've been disappointed by people or situations or outcomes in a particular area of life, the more times that's happened, the deeper the programming, the deeper the coding is that maybe is going to be a no. It's a bit like when you know a plaster's going to get ripped off, or when you know you're going to have an injection, your body's already tensing up because it's already anticipating the rejection, the pain, the possibility of the disappointment. It's already retracting itself. And as we start to do that subconsciously, we're not even conscious we're doing it most of the time, we're already shifting the odds away from the neutrality of the 50-50, which gets to shift to 51-49 in favor of the yes. Okay? So I'm going to give you a story to help you ground that point in. So some of you who've listened to my lives before will be familiar with me having spoken about somebody called Emily. Emily is a really good friend, and she used to live in my house share, and we were super close. And Emily moved out in December of last year because she wanted to have her own place. And this created a huge energetic contraction in me, like a sadness. It was just a very I had a very extreme reaction to her leaving, right? Because my inner child got activated, that this person that I felt this huge heart connection with, that I was used to seeing every day and sharing every aspect of my life with, was leaving. So it triggered the abandonment wound, right? We all have an abandonment wound. We all do. There is not one human that does not have some wounding around being left, being abandoned. Even something as small as our parents losing us in a supermarket for 5 minutes, if you were 4 at the time, 5, that something as simple as that can be enough to create an abandonment wound. That then becomes part of our coding. I'm going to be left. I'm going to be left. And the closer you allow somebody into your heart space, the greater the emotional risk, right? The greater the emotional risk, the more fear gets coded into, what if they leave me? And that's where our behavior starts to go off center, because we start to create all kinds of sneaky ways, manipulative ways of trying to ensure that that doesn't happen. Anyway, as far as Emily, the day she told me she was moving out, I just burst into tears, like uncontrollable. Like wounded child activation was like full on, right? The poor girl was about to go to work, so did not know what to do with me in this emotionally hemorrhaging state that she had inadvertently activated in me. So she looked at me as if I was slightly mad and said to me, "But Laura, I'm only moving down the road. We can see each other all the time. If anything, we can see each other more because we can have more quality time together, and you can come round for a cup of tea and we'll hang out loads, honestly." And she's looking at me like I'm absolutely insane for not believing that. I'm hearing these words through the filter of the wounded child. The wounded child's filter is already predisposed to not believe this, because the wounded child is very connected with the abandonment wound. So I'm listening to her reassuring me, but no part of that is landing with me. Okay? So I didn't believe her. Plus, I know her track record for keeping in touch with people is absolutely shocking. So I combined in my mind the evidence that she's not good at doing this in general, because I was always saying to her when we lived together, "Why don't you go for a coffee with your friend Holly? She seems really nice. Why don't you send her a message?" So evidence was there that Emily was not naturally good at initiating communication and contact and suggesting meetups, compounded with my deep triggering around her leaving me and the coding that I already had in place, that when she said we will meet up, for me, that existed in the field of possibility. It was perfectly possible for us to meet up We both live in the same area. Our houses are super close. We have one day in the week where neither of us goes to work. If you look at the odds of geographical location and familiarity with each other and the fact that we'd already built a friendship, you could say that it's completely within the realms of the possible that we could meet. You could even say it should be predictable that we would meet. But because I was so heavily coded with maybe means no, coupled with the evidence that her track record for initiating meeting up with friends was crap, I was like, this isn't happening. So I calibrated to this isn't happening. I then went into a stubborn mindset of, well, I'm not going to be the only initiator here because I am sick and tired of taking on that role with certain people, so I'm not doing it. What happened there was a kind of period of time where there was no initiation. She wasn't initiating, I wasn't initiating. We didn't see each other for months and months and months and months. For a while, that was painful. That was really painful for me because I desired it. And this is what happens when we desire things, but we also hold a frequency of this isn't possible. The desire creates a forward thrust, an energetic forward thrust of possibility. And the belief that it's not going to happen creates resistance. If the resistance is greater than the desire, that's the energetic breaks that makes it not possible to come into the material, to not manifest. So eventually, after a few months of not having contact with Emily, I began to release it. When we desire something but we fear that it's not possible, we actually end up holding it really tightly without realizing it. We energetically hold things tightly when we desire them and resist them at the same time. So I began to loosen my grip on wanting this thing, wanting to have this connection with Emily. I just released it. And I took my attention elsewhere. So when we become too far down the energetic, let's say, frequency of the realm of possibility, because we're too entrenched in the possibility of the no, we have to let it go completely, because nothing can come from that constricted energy. So it's like a ball. You just got to put it down. So I put the Emily ball down and I shifted it into the field of potentiality, which I will talk about more tomorrow, but just as a reference point. The field of potentiality is, it could happen. I desire it, but I'm completely letting it go because I can't see right now how it could happen. In the field of possibility, there is usually a thread that we can follow to how it could happen. In the field of potentiality, we have no idea how. We've surrendered it to the universe because our human is making a little bit too much of a mess of it. So sometimes if the human is not able to hold the energy lightly in the field of possibility, we surrender into a higher frequency of the field of potentiality and we let it go with love. It doesn't mean we're releasing the desire. It just means we're releasing the how around the desire and the time frame around the desire. Because when we really want something, we often tend to want it now, want it soon, want it next week, want to see evidence. If there's no evidence, we don't trust. So I let it go. I let the Emily hot air balloon just go. And then one day, out of nowhere, I was going into the co-op. She was at the bus stop and we converged like this. Because when we let go of things, when we surrender things that we cannot change or we don't know how to deal with them or they've reached an energetic stalemate, when we just let them go and we breathe and we create some space, we soften the resistance. As soon as we soften the resistance, the universe can get back in again. Imagine the universe is always trying to co-create with us. This is the fucking hilarious thing. It's always trying. It wants to. The universe is like a dance partner. It's like, you want to tango? Let's tango. You want to do the cha-cha? Let's do the cha-cha. Like, the universe knows every dance, and it knows every dance that you want to do. But we, humans, carry a shitload of resistance against manifesting the very things that we desire. The more we desire it, the more resistance we carry. That's why we have to do the energetic work to release the grip. To release the grip of the things that we desire. Let them come. We don't have to hustle that hard. Do you know what I mean? This is another misconception in this quantum field, that we have to hustle so hard for what we want. We don't. We create the desire. We calibrate to the desire. We release the shame or guilt around the desire. We do the energetic work to soften the resistance around the manifestation of the desire, and we lean the fuck back. That's how it works. So there's Emily at the bus stop. There's me coming out of the co-op. The universe literally brings me to the person that I desire to see. And I make an energetic decision in that split second that I am going straight over to her with my heart open, with the energy of assuming that I am wanted. Because the wounded child always assumes she's not wanted. The wounded child archetype, believe me, slows down our manifesting abilities no end, because she believes she's not worthy. She believes she's not going to be met. She believes she's going to be abandoned, and then she imprints that everywhere on everything, whether it's relevant or not. So I decided to approach Emily with the energy of, yes, she desires this, I desire this, let's be open. And she says to me, oh my goodness, I haven't seen you for such a long time. I would love to see you. And I said, well, I've not been feeling very well, actually. I've got a bit of a cold, so don't come too close. She said, well, as soon as your cold is better, let's go for a hot chocolate. Let's meet, let's hang out. I really want to catch up. And in that moment, I took a breath, and something very powerful happened. I allowed my magical child to step forward instead of the wounded child. I allowed the innocence of the magical child to step forward. The innocence of the magical child means she is not encoded with maybe. Maybe means no. She's encoded with maybe. Maybe is yes. So for the first time of Emily saying, let's get together, let's meet up, I really want to see you. Instead of that coding in me activating straight away around, she doesn't mean it, she won't initiate it, she da-da-da-da-da, I just chose to believe it was true. I just chose to believe that she had the desire to meet, and it was true. And sure enough, within the week, she had initiated meeting up. And now we meet up, if not every week, every other week. And for the first time in our friendship, and we've known each other 4 or 5 years now, it feels really balanced. We're no longer in this energetic block situation of me feeling like if I don't keep reaching out, she's just going to disappear off into the ether and we're never going to see each other anymore. It feels like she's stepped forward to meet me now. Why has she stepped forward to meet me? Because I've stopped believing that she's not capable of initiating. This is what we do to people. We label them, box them, decide they're not capable of doing certain things. And again, it's like a safeguarding practice that we do to avoid the disappointment. So the most powerful energetic work that we can do if we want to play in the field of possibility is to calibrate to the upper echelons of that frequency of maybe is yes. Maybe it's yes. It's such a simple pivot to shift from the coding of maybe means no to maybe is yes. I don't know if you can feel that, but it's so powerful. It suddenly gives the other person permission to show up for us in a way that they couldn't possibly do while we were so convinced that they wouldn't or they couldn't. So what happens there is we get to create paradigm shifts, right? Because the fact that I was willing to believe, even though there was no evidence, that's the key thing. This whole thing about predictability is very masculine energy, wanting evidence, wanting proven track record. If I do this, if I behave like this, if I turn up to this job, if I do this, I'm going to get this money, I'm going to get this response, I'm going to get this number of followers, whatever it is. It's a very masculine energy to keep wanting to create these patterns and follow the patterns to safeguard against any possible disappointment. So the field of predictability is a masculine energy. The field of possibility is very much a feminine energy frequency because it requires us to dance with the universe. It requires a certain aspect of surrender. So before, it was predictable to me that Emily would not initiate contact with me. Because I was willing to make that huge giant leap of maybe she will. Maybe I can release my coding around this is going to end up in a no, this is going to end up in a disappointment, and just be willing to believe it could be a yes. It then shifted into the field of possible that she would initiate. Now that she initiates meeting up regularly, it's become predictable that she will initiate that. Do you see what I'm saying? So we get to shift paradigms. Once we make that leap, we can make something which previously seemed impossible possible. Then we gather even more evidence that it can happen repeatedly, and then it becomes predictable. The same thing works in the frequency of money. So I want to give you an example there as well. So if you have a regular job, a day job, and you are on an hourly rate of pay, the longer you're on that rate of pay, the more evidence you have that that is the amount of money that's available to you. The more predictable it becomes that you get X amount of money in your bank account every month, the more that becomes your predictable paradigm. The longer that goes on for, the more difficult it can be to even conceive of the possibility that that could change, right? So for example, for me, as I've mentioned before, if people have tuned into some of my previous lives, being a teacher meant that £20 an hour was my predictable rate of pay for many, many years. That rate of pay was okay for a certain time period. It meant that I could pay my bills. It meant that I could do what I wanted to do, could have a holiday once a year. I wasn't rolling in it, but it was okay. But something happened 2 years ago when I was in Costa Rica and I got to a certain age in life and I suddenly felt like this amount of money is not okay. I am ready for an expansion. Now, if we want to expand into a new realm of possibility in a particular area of life, we have to some degree, take ourselves away from all the narratives which are familiar. So if we're surrounded by colleagues who get the same amount of money and they think that's perfectly okay, which it is for some people, and they don't have that same momentum to change and to shift that paradigm, then they may look at you like you're crazy. They may perceive that as even greedy if you want to expand your financial landscape, right? So when we want to make these quantum leaps into new paradigms, we have to somehow distance ourselves a little bit from everything that's familiar in order to step into a realm that's unfamiliar. So perhaps it was because I was in a completely different country. Perhaps it was because there was a period of 6 months where zero money was coming into my account. I began to really do a deep dive around money. And I began to realize that I wanted to shift this paradigm to change my vibrational frequency around what I felt was possible. So I started reading books about money, creating money, books that I'd never even heard of or thought of reading before, books containing ideas for rituals to release core beliefs, limiting beliefs around money, which I'd never conceived of doing before. And then most significantly, joining the Alpha Femme experience on online, which is a community of women who are massively upscaling their perception of their worth, and they are creating phenomenal wealth for themselves and for other women and their family members within their communities, right? Now, the thing with that is they are now choosing, via being part of that group Alpha Femme, to surround themselves by other women who are in this frequency of desiring more. Because those women will support and encourage this upgrade. Whereas the people in our lives who are not making these energetic leaps through no fault of their own will not energetically support you to leap into a wider paradigm of possibility if it's not one that they've ever played in. So reading books, listening to podcasts, surrounding yourself with women who are doing this, entrepreneurs, women who are calibrating to abundance, expansion, wealth, this will all support your shift into the field of possibilities, right? We can't do it in isolation, or we can, but it's a lot harder. We need the momentum and we need the social evidence from other people that it's possible. The old way of thinking is, oh, this person's doing really well in their business. This person's, super fabulously wealthy and increasing her abundance, but I can't do it. She can do it, but I can't do it. And we create an energetic gap. We other the person who's done it, and we come up with all kinds of reasons in our mind why we can't, but she can. And then that creates a resentment, and resentment obviously, yeah, exactly, Lindsay. And resentment obviously does not dwell in the frequency of more. Resentment dwells in the frequency of lack. So the energetic work is, if she can do it, I can do it. If she's got these codes that she's unlocked in her in order to expand the field of possibility of what she can manifest, then maybe if I spend enough time in her company or enough time listening to her masterclasses, maybe I can start to calibrate to the frequency of maybe more is possible, right? So what I did earlier this year was I started to do Facebook Live, started to do masterclasses inspired by Melanie, because if she hadn't done it and she hadn't shown me that it's possible to do it, I probably wouldn't have even conceived of it. So first of all, somebody has to drop it into our consciousness that certain things are possible, right? I saw her doing it. I saw her doing it with so much skill, so much passion, so much generosity. And I was like, I want to try. I want to do this. I want to play in this expanded field. And I started doing masterclasses for free. And I set myself the challenge of doing 10. And then on the 10th one, I thought to myself, do you know what? I'm going to really play with the field of possibility here in an expanded version, and I'm going to see what happens if I charge for this. So the last one, I decided to make it a paid masterclass, and I put a lot of energetic work into preparing for it, and I charged £20, which, believe me, in the coaching world is a very, very small amount of money, but to me it felt huge. It felt like a huge quantum leap to charge people to listen to me speak, to receive these downloads, and to trust that that had a value. That was a huge leap. In the end, about 20 women said yes to this invitation, and around £400 came into my bank account in response to that transmission. That was a blow up of my previous paradigm around money on a scale that I could not have imagined. I could not have imagined prior to that day that it was possible for me to speak for 90 minutes and for £400 to land in my bank account. previously that would have dwelt in the field of potentiality, i.e., completely inconceivable. But the more you watch other people doing it, the more you see it's possible, the more evidence you get, the more you decide if it's possible for her, it's possible for me, for you, for us, let me try. And then you do it, and then it's a success, and the money comes with ease. Suddenly you have a whole new reference point around what is possible in terms of money. Now, it's not yet predictable for me that I'm going to make £400 in 90 minutes, but it's possible. That's the thing. Once you've done it once, you've got some evidence. Once you've got some evidence, the mind really likes that because the mind latches onto that and it builds momentum. If I've done it once, I can do it twice. If I've done it twice, I can do it again. If I can do it repeatedly, eventually the ability to call in £400 in 90 minutes, if I keep doing that, becomes predictable. And that's what we call a healthy, dynamic, manifesting ecosystem. Each of these fields that we play in, the more we calibrate to things being possible, and we do it and we do it again and we do it again and we keep gathering evidence it's possible, we shift it into predictable. And then if it's predictable that I can receive £400 in 90 minutes, then maybe it's possible that it could be 800 one day. Maybe it's possible it could be 1,500 one day. And once you start to flex the muscles of the possibility field, you start to see how it's continually hardwired to expand you. Like it wants to expand you. There is a lean back energy quality that we are missing, ladies. That's the thing. It's shifting from the badass to the goddess. The badass is the one. So for example, the badass is the one in this case that studies with Melanie, that listens to everything that she's got to say, that takes all the notes, right? The doing, that's the energy of the doing, making things happen, creating a Facebook group, putting content in the Facebook group. If you're building your profile as a Tropic ambassador or as a coach or whatever it is we're doing, right? We beaver away at it behind the scenes. That's the energy of the badass, is the doing. But there comes a point where the lean back energy needs to come in. The co-creation, the trust in the co-creation with the universe needs to come in. So imagine whatever it is that you're building, whether you're building your cosmetics line, whether you're building your Tropic business, whether you're building coaching, whatever it is, right? All the things that you're doing behind the scenes, all of the aligned actions that you're taking behind the scenes is the equivalent of, let's say, making a cake, right? So in order to make a cake, the badass has to get involved because the badass has to make a shopping list. The badass has to go shopping, get in the car, put petrol in the car, buy the ingredients, get the right ingredients, come home, follow a recipe, put them in a bowl, mix them up, check the timings, set the oven, right? That is the realm of the badass, the doing. So imagine whatever it is that you're creating in your life is the equivalent of making this cake. You've got the ingredients, you've read the recipe, you've put them in the right quantities, you've mixed them thoroughly, you've preheated the oven, you've done all that. There comes a point where that cake needs to go into the oven and you need to let it go. Let it go, let it go. You've got to let the cake bake. Once that cake has gone in, that is the energetic equivalent of surrender. You've done your bit. You've done the baking. You have followed the recipe properly. You have refined the recipe if you've done it before and it wasn't perfect. You've done all your badassing. But the field of possibility is a co-creation between you and the universe. The universe sees you planting the seeds. It sees you taking aligned action. It sees you launching your rockets of desire. And it's like, aha, that's what Lindsay's manifesting. That's what Natalie's doing. That's what Laura's doing. Okay, cool. Let us now step in to do our part. Remember, I said the co-creation between you and the universe is like a tango. The universe is your dance partner. The universe wants to dance with you. But what happens is you put that cake in and you keep opening the oven door and having a look. And you keep thinking to yourself, I'm not sure if that's working. That cake doesn't look like it's cooking. Maybe I should have stirred it a bit longer. Maybe I put too much flour in. It's not changing colour. It's definitely not looking right. Maybe I should have done it differently. And we can't somehow, at the moment when we need to lean back and leave it alone and let the universe do the magic part, it's like there's something inside us that cannot just lean back and allow that to happen. And every time we open the door to check, because we don't trust, we let the heat out. Every time we let the heat out, we slow down the momentum of the process of the cake baking. If you've done everything right, if you've taken the aligned action, if you've taken care of your energy and emotions around whatever it is you're calling in, you've done the work, you've released resistance, you're ready, you're doing it, then the only remaining thing to do in this field of possibility is to lean back and allow the universe to tango with you. To trust that even though you can't see what is happening inside that cake is cooking. It's happening. There's something magical happening inside that oven, inside that cake, that you can't see, and you don't understand it with your human mind. And because you don't understand it with your human mind, you keep second guessing if it's working. Not trusting that there is an aligned time for everything. Your cake will be baked when it's baked. Your cake will be baked when enough heat has infiltrated it to transmute it from the mixture consistency to the browned, dried, cake-looking consistency. So really feel into that one energetically, ladies, is where am I tightening up and leaning forwards at the moment where the invitation is actually to lean back and trust. There is a divine timing when it's time to lean back and just allow that cake to bake, trusting that you've done everything you can, and now you release it to something higher than you, something which has a magical ability to co-create with you that you will never understand with your human mind. Because it doesn't belong in the realm of the human, it belongs in the quantum field. So I'm going to leave you with an analogy of Amazon. Think of Amazon as a metaphor for the universe and its willingness to co-create with us. Let's imagine that you want to order a cookery book from Amazon. You have already created an account with Amazon. You have already provided them with your credit card details, the billing address. You have chosen the cookery book that you want to buy. You have checked, you've put it in your trolley, you've gone to the checkout. You've checked all your bank details are correct. You've checked that your home address, postcode, everything is there, correct? Click. And you click and request for that book to be sent to you. And it tells you on the website 2 to 3 days. So you trust that if you place that order on Monday, that by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, that book is coming, right? In other words, once you have clicked send, you lean back, you surrender. You've clicked yes. You've clicked you want your cookery book. It's coming. If you order something from Amazon, Do you spend the next 3 days thinking, hang on a minute, what if, I don't know which depot the book's in. I don't know if it's in the UK. I don't know if it's in stock. Maybe it's in Bournemouth. Maybe it's in Cardiff. How the hell is it going to get from Cardiff to Manchester? What if there's a fuel shortage? What if there's not enough drivers? Who's the person in the depot near the airport that's going to handle the box? What if they don't get the order right? When we order something from Amazon, we don't psychoanalyze every step of the journey that book needs to take from the moment we've ordered it to the moment it arrives on the doorstep. We don't try and work out who the delivery guy is, what he looks like, what time he needs to get up in the morning in order to get to the warehouse on time, in order to pick up that order, in order to put the label on the box, blah, 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 blah. We don't, do we? We just click send, lean back, and wait for the book to come. The universe works in exactly the same way as Amazon energetically. You place an order. And as long as you don't have a huge amount of energetic resistance to receiving that package, quote unquote, or whatever it is that you've ordered, the universe is hardwired to bring it to you. That's how it works. You wouldn't feel unworthy to receive the Amazon book. You wouldn't go into a deep, emotional kind of deep dive of worthiness and rejection, or all these other stories that we bring to disappointment, all these other frequencies that we muddy the waters with when we're manifesting with the quantum field. We don't bring that when we're manifesting a book from Amazon. Why? Number one, we don't have any emotional attachment to whether the book comes or not. As soon as we have an emotional attachment to something, obviously you desire the book, but you're not going to be deeply wounded if the book doesn't come. So there's almost zero resistance there. Secondly, social proof is huge in our ability to trust. If you've got hundreds and hundreds of friends who've ordered from Amazon and every single time that package comes within 2 to 3 days, that builds a collective sense of trust that this system works because we can prove it. There's evidence. And we prefer to operate in fields where there's evidence because it feels safer to loop back to the original field of predictability. It's predictable that if you order a book on Amazon, it's going to come, because there's so much social evidence to prove that that is going to be the case. The quantum leap that we have to make if we want to play in the expanded field of possibility in our lives, to expand what's possible in relationships, to expand what's possible for our businesses, to expand what's possible for us stepping out into the light and being seen and being visible and having a platform and sharing, and if we want to expand in all those ways, there has to be an energetic shift to maybe means yes. Maybe it is possible for me. And the lighter you can hold yourself in the frequency of possibility, you connect with your desire, you hold it lightly, and you do the energetic work to know, if it doesn't work, if I step up and out and it doesn't work, if I take a risk and it somehow doesn't manifest how I want it to, then I'm still going to be okay. If you know that you can handle disappointment now as an adult in a way that maybe you couldn't handle it as a child, you increase your power exponentially. If you know that you take a risk and if it doesn't work exactly how you wanted it to work, at least you've learned something. At least you've expanded in your courage. At least you've flexed your courageous expansion muscles so that next time you try it, you're going to have a little bit more confidence, a little bit more ability to dust yourself off. Then there's nothing to be afraid of. If we can transcend the fear of failure, disappointment, humiliation, pain, rejection, which, don't get me wrong, they are huge energetic things to transcend. But if you really look at all the areas of your life where you know you could expand, but you're not taking a quantum leap, if you look into that, you will find the reason you're not doing that is a fear of one of those things, a fear of judgment, a fear of disappointment, a fear of failure, a fear of being shunned or exiled by people who are playing in a paradigm which now feels, let's say, more limited than the one that you want to play in. So the deep energetic work is, I can survive humiliation. I can survive failure. I can survive disappointment. If you know you can survive all of those things, then you have gained mastery over yourself. That is mastery, emotional mastery. If you know that you're going to be okay no matter what, and that you can feel those potential feelings, you can feel disappointed, you can feel sad, you can feel frustrated, you can feel humiliated, and still you can rise, and still you can try again, and still you can see the humor in that, then there is nothing stopping you from really embodying the more expanded version of yourself that wants to emerge now. So those are the key points of the field of predictability and the field of possibility. Tomorrow, I will be coming back to outline for you the field of potentiality, the field of miracles. The field of possibility is the field of magic. The field of potentiality is the field of miracles. So tomorrow, I'm going to bring this whole thing to its completion by outlining that third field for you, and then helping you to see how all three of those fields interlink and loop with each other, and ultimately how you get to become more conscious. The more you understand how these different fields work, the more conscious you become of which ones you're playing in your life, in which areas, and then you begin to have choice. You begin to have choice about which arena you're playing in which aspects of your life, and why. You get to become emotionally so fucking intelligent that you know which arenas you're playing in which areas, and why. Nobody has ever taught us any of this before. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful. So thank you, Lindsay, for your lovely comments. Yeah, the oven analogy is really helpful, isn't it? And I especially notice myself doing that, like when I've, maybe shared a piece of writing or something, and then just like checking, seeing what the response is. And it's the energetic equivalent of opening the oven door all the time. Because it's when we keep checking things and not trusting that we've planted them now in the quantum field, so they are now germinating under the surface, even if we can't see it. When we don't trust that, we actually detract the energy from the way it's germinating in this magical realm that we can't see. We have to learn to leave it alone and let people come to it. You do it even with the cake. Yeah, it's not trusting, is it? It's like, I've done my part, but I don't trust this unknown entity, aka the oven, or aka the universe. I don't trust them to do their part. And that is the mama bear controlling, overbearing energy, which is actually very masculine. The mama bear, the one that wants to control everybody and everything and doesn't trust any other fucker because they all get everything wrong, it's a very masculine energy. It's all about control. Whereas the co-creation with the universe is about leaning back at the right moment when we've done the aligned action, we've done the energetic work, and now it's time to allow the universe to sweep us away. Allowing the oven to do its part and allowing the mystery to be there that we don't know how. We may never know the how. And that's the realm of the magic. Natalie, unbelievably insightful, totally received and understood. Thank you, Laura, you legend. Thank you, Nat. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you to everybody else who's been here this morning. Anybody who hasn't caught it this morning but who's going to watch it later, then please do leave comments. Let me know what's landed. Let me know what's shifted. Let me know if there was something in this masterclass that made you go, oh my God, yes, that. Because that will really help me for tomorrow to prepare and to fuel myself for how to bring this together for you in the second part. So wishing you a lovely day. If you feel to watch it again later to really get all those points, then you can always do that. Sometimes when I listen to Melanie, I listen twice, sometimes even 3 times, because it's not just the words, it's the frequency of the words. The more you listen, the more you're going to tune into that frequency. So wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.